The 2011 Mississippi floods. The 2011 Mississippi River flood was one of the largest in United States history. It was caused by a mix of heavy spring rainfall and melting snow. Several river basins were affected, including the Mississippi, Ohio, and Missouri rivers. The 2011 flood was driven by multiple factors, including excessive precipitation and spring snowmelt affecting the Mississippi, Ohio, and Missouri river basins. The soil was already saturated due to the large amounts of precipitation that year, so when spring rolled around, the rain ran off into the Mississippi River. From late April into May, two major storm systems created record levels of rainfall across the upper and middle river basins. Total rainfall in some areas exceeded 2 feet. The flooding was seasonal, springtime, and was caused by precipitation as well as previous snowmelt in storm systems. Since heavy rainfall occurred across many states, both the Mississippi River and its smaller systems rose together, which ended up creating more water to flow into the systems and increased flood risk. The pictures in this slide are a comparison of the 1927 and 2011 floods. On this slide, the pictures show the increase of discharge after putting in a river navigation infrastructure system in the Mississippi River. A flood like this hadn't been seen since the years 1927 and 1937, so these big floods only happen around every 80 to 90 years. The main areas affected included Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Cincinnati, Ohio. Flash floods affected Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Tennessee, however. It affected the Ohio River and lower parts of the Mississippi River. There are changes in the river environment that we can already see from climate change, like a loss of floodplain forest, breaches of natural levees, and the occurrence of mudslides. These changes caused a higher frequency and magnitude of flooding in 2011. The building of dams and navigation infrastructure affected the amount of water flowing in these environments and wouldn't allow a natural recovery system to counteract it. This caused the habitats in the rivers to decline and made the discharge rate go up. It, the storm caused 2.8 billion in damage. Most of the destruction was in Tunica County. A not so fun fact is that it was reported on May 15th that Harrah's Ticina had nearly 6 feet of water inside the hotel. Almost 100 people in Fort Adams alone had to evacuate, and more than 2,600 residences, businesses, and other structures were impacted by the flood in Vicksburg. Testing of the water quality was shown to have worse water quality with a higher amount of sediment and phosphorus. Although sources have not directly stated that the quantity of water was affected, it can be assumed the water sources were limited due to the low quality of water in the river that they get their drinking water from. 1.2 million acres of agricultural land were affected by the floods. The current channel of the Mississippi had nearly 6 feet of water inside the hotel. Almost 100 people in Fort Adams alone had to evacuate, and more than 2,600 residences, businesses, and other structures were impacted by the flood in Vicksburg. Testing of the water quality was shown to have worse water quality with a higher amount of sediment and phosphorus. Although sources have not directly stated that the quantity of water was affected, it can be assumed the water sources were limited due to the low quality of water in the river that they get their drinking water from. 1.2 million acres of agricultural land were affected by the floods. The current channel of the Mississippi River is held in place by a series of artificial levees constructed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Flood fights are procedures that have been implemented for floods like the 2011 Mississippi floods, and they have two phases. In phase 1, flood fight begins when the Mississippi River reaches 11 feet in New Orleans, triggering activation of the Emergency Operations Center, coordination with officials, increased levee inspections, and Preparation to operate the gates and spillways. Phase 2 of the flood fight begins when the Mississippi River is forecast to exceed 15 feet in New Orleans, prompting daily levee inspections and meeting with engineering division staff to address concerns and recommendations. Flood fight actions include confining sand boils, raising low levee areas with sandbags or HESCO baskets, building emergency berms, and operating gates to control water flow and levels. These are the sources that we got our information from.